I'm the Reverend James C. Simmons, the senior pastor of Baber African Methodist Episcopal Church, and I would like to welcome you to our community forum on housing. In September of 2020, New York State legalized cannabis and mandated that tax revenue from sales be reinvested into Black and Brown communities who had been negatively impacted by the war on drugs. Armed with this information, our mayor, Lovely Ann Warren, created the Reparations and Universal Basic Income Committee, also known as RUBI, on March 26, 2021. The purpose of this committee is to review the universal basic income and reparation pilots in other cities to determine how Rochester could develop this life-altering program for our residents and possibly create a city-sponsored home ownership mortgage program. RUBI is comprised of 3 subcommittees: the Universal Basic Income Subcommittee, the Reparations Subcommittee, and the Housing Committee. The Housing Committee, led by Dr. Cephas Archie, the Chief Equity Officer of the City of Rochester, and Dr. Myra Henry, the President and CEO of the YWCA of Rochester and Monroe County, was specifically charged to investigate and study how racist housing policies, practices, and behaviors led to our neighborhoods with the highest concentration of poverty and other disparities. 2, propose reparation options that specifically target and seek to repair inequities that continue to grow out of forced housing segregation. And 3, create a policy resolution to be presented to Mayor Warren. In addition to our co-facilitators, Dr. Archie and Dr. Henry, other members of our housing subcommittee include Melissa Berrien, the Family Sufficiency Supervisor at the Rochester Housing Authority, Sean Burr, Deputy Executive Director at the Rochester Housing Authority, Dr. Sanel Hawkins, President and CEO of the Urban League of Rochester, the Honorable Michael Patterson of our City Council, Angelica Perez Delgado, the President and CEO of the Ibero-American Action League, Dr. Hank Rubin, Founding Director of the Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives, and myself, the Reverend James C. Simmons, the Senior Pastor of Baber African Methodist Episcopal Church. In order to fulfill our charge to investigate and study how racist housing policies, practices, and behaviors led to our neighborhoods with the highest concentration of poverty, and to propose reparation options that specifically target and seek to repair the inequities that continue to grow out of forced housing segregation. Our committee explored reparation pilots in places such as Evanston, Illinois, who created a restorative housing program as their first reparation initiative. We further met with local financial institutions, the City of Rochester's Neighborhood and Business Development Department, Mayor Warren's Task Force on Cannabis, area nonprofits, individual citizens, and we reviewed reports and information from numerous sources. Members of our committee even traveled to Evanston, Illinois, and met with their mayor and corporation council to further learn about their reparation initiatives, the pitfalls, the successes, to seek advice. After we decided to use this program as a benchmark to build upon. Pictures from this experience can now be seen on the screen. Beloved hearts, the purpose of this forum is to solicit input from the public on the Housing Subcommittee's recommendations. These methods can be used to provide feedback. One, written feedback can be shared in the Q&A section of this webinar. Two, persons can use the raise hand feature at the end of the presentation to speak. Each speaker will be allocated 2 minutes when called upon. Or three, persons can email their feedback to rockruby@cityofrochester.gov. That's ROCRUBI@cityofrochester.gov. But beloved hearts, before we proceed to our recommendations, we would like to provide a brief overview of practices that led to Rochester neighborhoods with the highest concentration of poverty and other disparities. For example, in 1934, the United States government created the Fair Housing Administration, which ensured mortgages at low interest rates with little down for home purchasers. The FHA, however, used color-coded maps that the Homeowners Loan Corporation created to determine quote-unquote safe areas where loans could be made. Communities without Black or brown residents were painted green, are safe locations to issue loans, while communities where Black and brown people live were marked red, are locations where loans should never be made. This practice became a powerful incentive for white neighborhoods to keep their communities white. No wonder certain neighborhoods created contracts that barred property owners from selling to people who weren't white, a common practice in Monroe County known as deed restrictions and racial covenants. No wonder realtors refused to show the thousands of African Americans who came north in search of better opportunities homes in certain neighborhoods. No wonder Black and brown people were confined in specific wards in overcrowded and subdivided houses that lacked even basic services. No wonder residents created improvement associations and block clubs to ensure that no homes were sold to Black or brown people, and even resorted to violence. These set of forces, FHA appraisal maps, deed restrictions, racial covenants, realtor sales practices, block clubs, improvement associations, and violence, contained Black and brown people in the area southwest and northeast of downtown Rochester, areas which still have the highest concentration of poverty and other disparities. Now, my friends, let's turn to our recommendations. The Housing Subcommittee is pleased to present 3 recommendations. The first recommendation is Mayor Warren has proposed to use American Rescue Plan, or ARPA funds, to create pilot programs that will maintain and increase the value of properties that were purchased by owner occupants in formerly red-lined areas and increase the number of resident homeowners in formerly red-lined areas. Examples of these programs include roofing assistance, home rehab assistance, a housing trust fund that will support the preservation and production of affordable housing, a by-the-block program that will build new homes for income-eligible residents on 100 vacant lots in former red line areas, and partner with the Rochester Land Bank to use ARPA funds to acquire homes through the city tax foreclosure sales. The land bank will then provide rehab grants to owner-occupant purchases of up to $50,000. However, because the ARPA funds that will be used to create these reparative housing pilots are not permanent, our committee recommends the use of cannabis revenue to permanently sustain the most effective of these pilots. Dr. Cephas Archie will present this recommendation, after which our second recommendation is that the City of Rochester partner with our governmental and nonprofit agencies, such as the Housing Authority, to help them improve and enhance their home ownership programs. Sean Burr and Melissa Berrien of the Rochester Housing Authority will present this recommendation. After which, we as a committee recognize the role our financial institutions have played in this process. And therefore, our third recommendation is that the City of Rochester partner with our financial institutions to promote, improve, and enhance their home ownership programs that focus on our target population. Dr. Hank Rubin and Angelica Perez Delgado will present this recommendation. Now, beloved hearts, I turn it over to Dr. Cephas Archie to present our first recommendation, that cannabis funds be used to permanently sustain the most effective of the proposed housing pilots.
Thank you, Reverend Simmons. I appreciate the introduction and the great facilitation of tonight's meeting. We as a subcommittee are very proud of the presentation that you have put forth so far, and we commend you on your hard work. Thank you for that. As Reverend Simmons stated, I am Dr. Cephas Archie. I am the Chief Equity Officer for the City of Rochester, and I want to briefly spend some time with you highlighting some of the efforts of the work that we as a subcommittee have began to put in place per our recommendations. My efforts will build specifically on the opportunities afforded through and to this committee through our utilization of potential cannabis revenue, as well as utilization of the current seed money, if you would, that is made affordable to us or available to us through ARPA opportunities as well. So as highlighted by Reverend Simmons, we have been very deliberate in our efforts to collect data and use research in our process to present recommendations that we think would be most effective or most applicable here within the City of Rochester. To that end, we have spent an enormous amount of time engaging national, regional, statewide opportunities or municipalities both across the country as well as cross state lines that really allow us to consider what efforts have been put in place prior to our engagement. We as a committee decided that we did not want to feel as though we had to reinvent the wheel on every one of our opportunities that we wanted to seek or consider, but that we would use a methodology that was based in high impact best practices. So municipalities across the country who have ventured already into efforts to consider reparations and universal basic income type programs already, to determine what was their most effective practices, to determine what their benchmarks of success were, to be very deliberate in our efforts to avoid pitfalls that they may have initiated unintentionally when considering these opportunities. And so to that point, as stated, and I appreciate the very clear and condensed manner that was articulated by Reverend Simmons, about how we looked at the specific program aligned with Evanston, the city of Evanston out in Illinois. And as those photos highlighted, we met with them to really dig deep into not only understanding the what they were requesting or the what they had rolled out or what the specifics were, but more specifically the how to confirm that we were aligning our efforts based off of what had already been sort of researched, applied, and determined to have been effective with their structures and recommendations there. And to that point, as highlighted, there was multiple sort of pronged approaches under housing. If I could, I'd like to go back one moment and really highlight why housing. So first and foremost, data has demonstrated that the largest contributor to the intergenerational wealth gap is home ownership. And so what we wanted to confirm with our efforts is that we want to look at efforts that really target the outcomes that this RUBI committee really is committed to. And so with that, we wanted to make sure that we were looking into opportunities that would have the largest impact. And as housing and home ownership themselves have been clear determinants of the impact of the intergenerational wealth gap, this is where we prioritized housing as a component of our work. To that, as many of you may recognize as well, the Race Commission within the past 8 months completed their research and their work. And as a recommendation of the Race Commission and their resulting report, they highlighted housing as a major focus of inequities when it comes to those intergenerational wealth gaps, as well as there was a specific charge that was provided to this committee by the current sitting mayor that followed up on the Race Commission's recommendation, asking us to look at reparations altogether. And so basing our research from those two generating points is what focused our efforts into the housing sector, which is why there is a subcommittee focused under RUBI specific to the housing and home ownership opportunities. To that point, as stated, engaging with our cities and towns such as Evanston, we looked at what data and programs they were implementing there to see if we could benchmark our efforts there. And so using sort of ARPA funds as highlighted by Reverend Simmons, thank you again, Reverend Simmons, we actually at least mirrored some of the programs and initiatives that they have facilitated there. So opportunities such as the home improvement benefit, and the funds to repair, improve, and modernize, opportunities for homes here within the city of Rochester for these targeted communities. What was so critically instrumental for us is to confirm that we have a basis for our recommendations. And what I mean by the basis for our recommendations is that Reverend Simmons highlighted that the redlining component of the city and the county is a drastic contributing factor to the lack of home ownership and to the plight of housing specific to communities of color here in the city of Rochester. We wanted to be very deliberate to confirm that our request and our recommendations around reparations did not solely hinge upon the context of slavery, although that in itself is very valid. We wanted to make sure that there was a current local context that we could apply our recommendations to, not only acknowledging the historical context of slavery that impacts the housing market and the housing and home ownership operations here within the city, but looking at how we as a community ourselves, whether it was through our own city ordinances, whether it was our practices tied to our availability for lending and specific places where we assign certain racially segregated communities to live, we have a specific target of harm that we as a city, as a county, as a community are needing to respond to repair the impact of the negative harm that we in some way, whether it is through our actions or either through our inactions, which have contributed to the condition of where we are today. And so I wanted to highlight and really reiterate the context of what Reverend Simmons provided, because this gives us the core component of where we are looking to begin the discussion around home ownership and repairing the damages that we here as a city and a county, as a community, have unfortunately impacted upon these specific races and identity groups. So thank you for that. To that end, more specifically, as highlighted, there is the opportunity for the home improvement benefit, where we will be looking to actually provide funds to repair the homes of specific targeted groups who are negatively impacted by all of the redlining and all of the ordinance and all of the barriers that we've placed in the way of people becoming homeowners, and not just first-time homeowners, sustaining their home ownership. As we also recognize that just to purchase a home is one thing, but the additional barriers that are placed in certain communities for them to be able to retain that home ownership, to be able to pay the taxes on it, to be able to make sure that it is the property values of it is equitably around the very same funding amounts as their counterparts. So the program that we're looking at, as again, that I'm specifically talking about, is being comparable or aligned with infrastructures that we have found in place that are within other cities that are currently working and are being implemented at this time. So the significance of this is not only to look at the home improvement, but also the mortgage assistance benefit. So that, again, to help these specific communities keep their actual home ownership, so that not only are we looking to help them get home ownership through potentially looking at opportunities for down payment and opportunities for closing costs, et cetera, but also working to make sure that we are improving the homes itself. So right now, as stated by Reverend Simmons, we are looking at opportunities afforded as seed money through ARPA. So ARPA funds have allowed for specific opportunities to be considered that specifically close equity gaps. That was one of the key components of utilization of ARPA funds that cities were cleared to use these resources for. And so this opportunity allows us to look at the inequities that have been caused by local and regional and county historical efforts that have gotten us to these points of lack of home ownership or the inability to have homes in certain areas. And so we are looking at developing multiple pilots for the next 2 years that will purpose to close those equity gaps around home ownership, using those descriptions of the home ownership benefit, the home improvement benefit, as well as potentially the mortgage assistance benefit, that will look at how these programs will be launched and initiated here within the city of Rochester specifically. And so again, as highlighted by Reverend Simmons, we want to do this for at least the next 2 years to really look at which of these opportunities have the greatest impact. Is it specifically the mortgage assistance? Is it specifically the home improvement? Is it specifically the home ownership benefit affiliated with the closing and the down payment costs? Or is it a little bit of all three? And so over the next 2 years, we are going to be launching a local pilot here within the city of Rochester. It is our recommendation to do so, to really look at what of these options could yield an increase in home ownership of these communities that were negatively impacted by the decisions made and owned here within the city and the county and our larger community. And so to this point, it is our focus also to look at sustainable funding, sustainable opportunities that look to maintain these resources, these services beyond the 2-year pilot mark. And so we are also looking at the new opportunities that will be afforded potentially through the cannabis revenue that will be collected per the new passing of those structures in place. And so this is where we will look to research what will work through beta tests and what options can be afforded through the next 2 years, and then permanently looking at, based off of what our beta tests have determined is the most effective of these strategies with the greatest impact, what is it that we could put forward as a permanent sustainable function going forward, utilizing the revenue from cannabis dollars. And so this is the current, one of the current strategies, one of the current tracks, one of the current avenues that we are looking at as a recommendation per our committee to say, what are we doing to close the racial equity gap when it comes to home ownership, which has been determined to be the largest contributing factor to the intergenerational wealth gap impacting these communities of color.
Thank you so much, Dr. Archie, for that excellent review of our first recommendation. Let me also remind those who listen on Zoom and on Facebook or other methods that you can provide feedback in the Q&A section of this webinar, that you can also use the raise hand feature at the end of the presentation to speak. And you can also email your feedback to rockruby@thecityofrochester.gov. Now, beloved hearts, let me invite Sean Burr and Melissa Berrien to share the work and recommendations that we have towards partnering with our governmental and nonprofit agencies to help improve and enhance home ownership programs that target our population. Beloved hearts, you now have the microphone.
Thank you, Reverend Simmons, and great job so far. And And Dr. Archie, well stated. You couldn't have wrapped it up any better, for our audience. And RHA is honored to be part of this initiative, and instrumentally so. For most people know that the Housing Authority operates two main programs, Section 8 and public housing. What many don't know is that we have a very successful family self-sufficiency program, as well as a home ownership program. And we've grown those programs over the years. We're not required to have them by HUD or by regulation, but the Housing Authority has chosen to apply for grants, to also infuse some of our own money into the success of these programs, and to benefit not only our participants and our residents, but to increase their ability to become self-sufficient and also homeowners. We would love to be part of making this a community-wide process and program based on the successes that we had. And Melissa can talk about the specific numbers and the success, but overall, we've had the support of our board, we've had the support of our community partners in ensuring the success of our participants who enter into the homeownership program to successfully become homeowners. We recognize them at board meetings. It is quite an accomplishment, and it's not easy for them, but we work with them one-on-one, and like I said, to ensure their success. So the ability or the opportunity to be able to make this a community-wide program, I think, would be very, very beneficial. And as Dr. Archie stated, we have many opportunities down the road, not only with the ARPA funds, but with funds coming from cannabis as well. And now is the perfect time to make our recommendations and hopefully be able to provide more opportunities for folks in our community. With that said, I will segue over to Melissa, who can talk to you about the specifics of our self-sufficiency and home ownership programs, and also the successes.
So many of you may or may not know that RHA actually has a home ownership program. So if you are a public housing resident or Section 8 participant, you have the ability to convert the way that we subsidize your rent into a subsidy for your mortgage. So we have many families who have taken advantages of this opportunity. We've had 69 families close on homes between 2017 and 2020. We've had a slight lull, and I'm sure that's much due to the pandemic, and also the housing market has become a little crazy at this point. But we are working with families. I think right now we have about 4 people pending closing and 23 families who have been approved already for financing and are searching for homes, and probably another 50 to 100 families who are in the process of, fixing credit and getting ready to submit themselves to banks in order to get approval for mortgages. So how can we increase this program? There are many ways. One of the things that we learned in Evanston that they were doing, which I thought was a really great idea, was they were offering $25,000 to families to close on homes. So I'm not saying that that's something that Rochester would be able to do, but if we could have that amount of funding in order for folks to buy a home, that would make sure that none of our families who would be participating in the program would have to pay any mortgage insurance. So, that costs families anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 because they don't have the 20% down in order to secure the mortgage with the bank. So that's an extra amount of money that the family would not have to pay, therefore allowing them to be able to afford more of a home. So I think that was a great program that Evanston was doing, and it would be wonderful if that was something that we could also do here in Rochester, as well as the other Evanston program that they were working on, which was rehabbing homes. So families could also get $25,000 to rehab a home that they own, and they could match that $25,000 with other rehab programs. So not saying that we understand that sometimes rehab costs exceed way past $25,000, but if you had the ability to match them with other city and state programs who would provide some dollars, families would be able to bring their homes that they had back to full value. And that's how we create better neighborhoods. Homeownership is one of the key ways that families are able to get out of poverty. As Reverend Simmons says, and Dr. Archie expounded upon, the ways in which people haven't been left out of that investment opportunity because they were not denied, they were denied opportunities for home ownership. I think the greatest way to build our neighborhoods back, and there's lots of areas in the city that need rebuilding, is through home ownership. So let's couple those programs that we already have, the wonderful, sorry, my light, I'm in my office and the light just went off. One of those wonderful programs that we have already in the city. There are many rehab programs in the city. And I think if we just partner, have more vision about how we utilize these programs with the Rochester Housing Authority or ABC or other programs in our community, if we just have more of a focus. So we're focusing on one specific neighborhood, and so the Rochester Housing comes into play, and then ABC maybe in their I think they have a program where they help rehab homes. That comes into the program. If we're focused on one particular neighborhood, I think we would see a better result. So that's part of the recommendation, as Dr. Archie already stated. Again, we've had 69 families who were able to close on homes. These are all families who are at 80% or below of the median income. So it is a possibility for these families. It's just that they are going to need a little bit of extra help. And I think we can provide that help with these types of programs.
Thank you both for lifting this particular recommendation. And please, no reason to apologize for a light that goes out. In a technological world, we have all been there and done that. Also want to share our appreciation for the creation of this home ownership program through the Housing Authority and the commitment to see how we can approve, build upon, increase use of program, address barriers so that we can impact even more families. Just this past week, one of my families at my local congregation where I pastor shared that they were one of those families that was able to tap into this program and to build their life and now own a home that they'll be able to pass down from generation onto generation. So thank you tremendously, and we look forward to how we'll march together with this program. Lastly, coming to present our third recommendation is Angelica Perez Delgado and Hank Rubin, who will come and share with us about partnering with our financial institutions to promote, improve, and enhance their home ownership programs. And before they come, I once more give reminder to how persons can provide feedback. That feedback can be provided by using the Q&A section on this Zoom. Feedback can also be provided by using the raise hand feature. Feedback can be provided by going to emailing rockruby@cityofrochester.gov. And if you know any of us, feedback can also be provided to us. Now, let me turn you over to those who will present our final recommendation.
I apologize. My internet is very stable, so I am going to pass the baton to Hank.
And Dr. Rubin is unmuting himself. There we go.
If our internet isn't unstable, we are, aren't we? I'm sorry about that, folks. Thank you, Reverend. That's a terrific job. I'm awed, very impressed, and very appreciative of the courage and the historical service priority that the Rochester Housing Authority has placed on going above and beyond its regulatory responsibilities as effective servants of the public interest. The programs that Melissa and Sean described to you go above and beyond what the RHA is required to do in order to step forward into what our community needs. CFAS has done an incredible job of providing leadership and vision to this process. And I want to capture a piece of the language that he used when he talked about the definitional, the front-end responsibility to acknowledge the harm that's been done as a predicate for the action that we need to take. Reparations is largely predicated on the acknowledgement of that harm, whether it's by action or inaction. The acknowledgement, I would argue, and I would carry the message of Frederick Douglass into this, acknowledgement by itself is not enough. Acknowledgement demands action, and it demands vigilance, and it demands accountability and leadership. We have experienced within this committee, as we've traveled to Chicago and in Evanston, the capacity to think big and to integrate a lot of pieces. CFAS articulated the manner in which we can even see a way clear to the prospect of the funding of this unusual reparations vision through first the ARPA funds and ultimately the cannabis funds, but it's going to require even more than that. It's going to require that our financial institutions step forward, not just with their acknowledgement, but with their strategic engagement for doing things differently than they've done before, taking responsibility for more than they've done before. And we have just begun the process of those conversations and can say out loud that in the discussions we've had thus far, our representatives and colleagues from the financial communities, investment communities, banking communities, have been out front and open about the acknowledgement of past wrongs and the responsibility for figuring out how to step forward into that breach in ways different than that community has done before. I can't speak yet. I don't think Angelica can yet, or any of us, as to exactly what that's going to look like. But I know that we will, as a committee, even as we look into a future that has transitions in it, we'll be paying attention to the assurance that there are infrastructures, systems for supporting not just the front end money, not just the cannabis supported sustaining monies, but an infrastructure for internal accountabilities and investment strategies that will change the way we do business in Rochester and the Rochester community to support the people who have been injured in the ways that CFAS began to articulate through prior action in the Rochester area. So thank you. I don't know, Angelica, if you're a bit more stable at your end, if you're able to add anything to that, or I'll just turn it back to you, Red.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for presenting our third recommendation, and thank each of you for presenting the amazing work and efforts and goals that we have as committee. Beloved hearts, we do invite persons to share their feedback. If there's persons who wish to share now, you may utilize the raise hand feature and we will acknowledge you. Also, you may provide feedback by going to sending an email to rockruby@cityofrochester.gov, and feedback can be provided on our social media devices as well, and utilizing the question and answer section. The feedback that is provided will help us to refine, to purify, to clarify our recommendations so that we can present the best possible recommendations to administration to make a meaningful change and difference within our community. So, beloved hearts, we do invite you to share at this particular moment. And as we look and see if anyone wishes to share out loud at this particular moment, let me also say, hello, Jace, one of my young people who is watching right now and trying to yell at Pastor and get me to respond. So, hey, all right, beloved hearts. Thank you all so much for your participation. Let me ask if any member of the committee wishes to make any statements before we move from this particular mountain and go forth and do the work. Let me call upon Dr. Cephas Archie.
Thank you, Reverend Simmons. I appreciate it. I want to reiterate a few things. First off, I really want to thank Hank, Dr. Rubin, Dr. Henry, Mr. Bird, Melissa, Angelica, yourself for all of the amazing work, Dr. Chanel Hawkins, and all of the people who have been a part of the subcommittee in helping us to really stay focused and true to the charge that we have been given. And so I tip my hat off to each of you and say thank you, and how much of a pleasure it is to work with such a talented and a phenomenal group of people who are committed to the change that we are all speaking about today. I also want to be very deliberate in reiterating something that was just stated by Melissa Berrien and Sean Burr. They just reaffirmed, because I want to use this platform to really also not just talk about what our recommendations are, but to get the communication out there about what is happening and what is available. Awareness is critical. Knowledge is very vital to the efficacy of you having access to these resources. One of the things that Melissa and Sean just spoke about explicitly is that there is a program within RHA that affords personnel who are approved for utilization of HUD vouchers and HUD resources to be eligible to use those payments toward a home ownership mortgage. So personnel who are currently in the HUD program, or even those applying, to really be aware that such outstanding programs that are accessible to you is critical to make sure that we are educating you and making you aware of all the opportunities that there are for home ownership, even if there are reduced financial statuses, right? So with programs such as theirs, just the awareness that there is such a program is critical to us moving the needle forward to this work. And so I want to use this platform to encourage as many of our community partners, as many of our community-based organizations, as many of our community residents who may be considering or currently under the resources provided by RHA, to really look into that opportunity, because that opportunity is critically and core to home ownership opportunities for you and your family sustainably going forward. In addition to that, I want to link together the resources talked about by Hank. So as Dr. Rubin spoke about our financial lending sector, and it's clear that our own research and our own data has confirmed that our financial lending sector, our home mortgage sectors, have had a huge part in contributing to limiting access and barriers to specific communities, and that those lending sectors within the county, within the city, within the region have all acknowledged it. And so what we are asking them to do is to become a part of the solution by agreeing to come to the table. So when you have great opportunities and great programs such as offered by RHA that allow personnel or residents to use their vouchers toward home mortgage and purchasing, this is where there are opportunities for our lending sectors to say, possibly there are ways that we can help supplement in those originating costs, those opening costs, those closing costs, those down payment costs. How are we looking at opportunities to confirm that we can, if at all possible, develop programs that we could reduce interest rates for personnel who are approved, that we could secure additional resources, and our opportunities to repair the harm and the damage that we acknowledge we have contributed. And so I bring those two components together to make sure that you are aware that a larger focus of this group is not just to look at the emphasis of what the city is doing, but also look at what we are as a community is doing collaboratively, creating systems in place that address these historical inequities in a current context, so that we are saying, if the city can contribute this component, if RHA will be willing to contribute this component, if our lending sectors will be willing to contribute this component, is where collectively we have a larger impact in closing these home ownership and inequity gaps that we have confirmed have been created not just from a historical national scene, but from what we have done here locally. And so this is in addition to the ARPA discussions, in addition to the cannabis discussions, that we are all committing ourselves to leaning into the opportunities to close these gaps collectively. I am so honored to have Dr. Myra Henry be a part of leading this group, as she has been able to really look at the CBO sort of opportunities that she has been affiliated with and say, how can we lean in more so that their focus is not singularly on getting people in long-term care, but as far as the housing opportunity, but permanent housing opportunity structures. And so again, we would love to work with you. We would love to work with all of the sectors reflected throughout this region to say, if we each did a little, the impact that we could have as a whole would be as phenomenal as a change agent, that we could drive permanent sustainable change on harm that's been done to these local communities. And so this is where I charge not only the people who are on this committee, but the people who are watching us, the people who will be watching us in 6 weeks, in 6 months, and listening to this recording, to really take the mirror and turn that mirror inwardly and say, what can we do to contribute to recognizing the impact that, whether through our actions or inactions, have contributed to the specific lack of home ownership and quality housing opportunities that are afforded to these communities. And so I just wanted to make sure that we collectively as a group articulated very well that our work is focused on the city, but it's also focused on the whole community and what each of us can contribute to our aligned goal and focus of what this subcommittee was charged to do.
Thank you, Dr. Archie, for that tremendously. Beloved hearts, with that, let me express appreciation and thanks to each and every person who has participated in this forum. Let me express thanks to our committee that has worked collaboratively since March of 2021, especially our leaders, Dr. Archie and Dr. Henry, for the direction and the vision that they provide this subcommittee as we work in concert with the entire RUBI committee. Now, beloved hearts, I encourage you to provide feedback even as you watch this particular forum in the days and weeks ahead. Reach out onto us that we might collaboratively be able to work together. And my hope, my prayer, and my desire is that each and every one of you find rest and peace on this particular eve as we work together to make a difference, to work the land, to take care of it, and make a difference in the world. Once more, thank you so much, and good night, everyone.